The steel corridors of Station Khalsa 7 echoed with laughter as Akeem dragged her inheritance documents through the marketplace. 17 years old, orphaned 3 weeks prior, and now the proud owner of what everyone called the Ghost Farm, a worthless chunk of rotating metal at the edge of the agricultural belt. "Better sell it for scrap while you can," shouted Mrs. Tavrani from her spice stall. "That farm hasn't grown a single crop in 40 years. Akeem kept her eyes down, clutching the data chip containing the deed. Her parents had died in a shuttle accident, leaving her nothing but debts and this mysterious inheritance from a grandfather she'd never known. The other merchants snickered as she passed. In a station where farmland meant survival, owning dead soil was worse than owning nothing at all. Only one person didn't laugh. Mir, the station's junior engineer, watched from his repair booth with something like sympathy in his dark eyes. At 19, he'd seen enough hardship to recognize it in others. "Akeem," he called out, setting down his plasma wrench. "I could look at the farm systems if you want. Maybe there's something salvageable." She stopped, surprised anyone would offer help. "Why would you do that?" Mir shrugged. "Because everyone deserves a chance. And because I knew your grandfather." He was unusual. 2 days later, they took a maintenance shuttle to the farm. The orbital structure loomed before them. A massive cylindrical drum that should have been spinning to generate gravity and rotate crops through optimal sun exposure. Instead, it hung motionless, its solar panels dark, its docking bay sealed with decades of neglect. "The access codes still work," Mir said, fingers dancing across the shuttle's console. "That's strange. Usually abandoned stations have their systems locked down." The airlock hissed open, revealing darkness beyond. Emergency lighting flickered to life as they stepped inside, their mag boots clanking against the metal floor. The farm's interior was enormous. 3 kilometers of growing chambers designed to feed thousands. But the hydroponic beds were empty, the irrigation systems dry. "Your grandfather sealed this place right after the Sovereignty War," Mir said, consulting his scanner. 43 years ago. No one knows why. Akeem ran her hand along a dusty control panel. "He fought in that war. My father said he came back different. Never spoke about it." They explored deeper, past dormant greenhouses and silent machinery. In the central hub, Mir's scanner began beeping frantically. "There's power here. Active power." He frowned at the readings, coming from below the main deck. It took them an hour to find the hidden elevator, concealed behind a false wall in the administrative section. The lift descended into darkness, then opened onto something impossible. A vault. Not just any vault. A military-grade bunker with active environmental controls and enough security to guard a planetary treasury. And inside, stacked in perfect rows, were bonds. Physical war bonds from the Sovereignty War, issued by the Terran Coalition to fund humanity's defense against the Zathari invasion. Each certificate was worth a fortune when issued. But these had been locked away, untouched, accumulating compound interest for over 4 decades. Mir's hands shook as he scanned the certificates. "Akeem, these are authenticated, unhacked, unforged." He looked at her, his face pale. "Do you understand what this means?" She stared at the rows of paper, her mind unable to process the magnitude. "How much?" "The scanner estimates approximately 5.3 billion credits, plus accumulated interest." Mir sat down hard on the vault floor. "Your grandfather must have invested everything he had into the war effort, then hidden it all here." Akeem picked up one of the bonds, reading the faded print. "Why? Why hide this much wealth?" Mir pointed to a datapad mounted on the wall. When Akeem activated it, her grandfather's face appeared, younger than she'd imagined, wearing a coalition uniform. "If you're watching this, I'm gone," the recording said. "And your family. I couldn't spend this money. Every credit came from the deaths of my squad mates, bought with their sacrifice. The coalition paid bonuses for survivors, compensated us for our service, but we only survived because millions didn't." The old soldier's eyes were haunted. "I built this farm to grow food for humanity. Not for profit, but I was a coward. Couldn't bring myself to use blood money for something good. So I hid it, hoping someone braver would come along. If that's you, don't make my mistake. Use it, feed people, build something that matters." The recording ended. Akeem and Mir sat in silence, surrounded by enough wealth to reshape the entire station. 3 months later, Station Khalsa 7 was transformed. The ghost farm spun to life, its chambers filled with crops genetically optimized for maximum yield. Akim had hired every unemployed worker on the station, turned Mir into her chief operations officer, and began expanding into vertical farming modules. But more than that, she'd established the Grandfather's Fund, using 2 billion credits to provide interest-free loans to struggling families, fund education programs, and support orphans like herself. Mrs. Tavrani, who'd mocked her in the marketplace, now worked in the farm's distribution center. She'd apologized profusely when Akim offered her the job. "I don't understand," the older woman had said. "After how I treated you." Akim had smiled, remembering her grandfather's words. "Everyone deserves a chance." The farm's observation deck became Akim's favorite place. She stood there now, watching the cylinder rotate through its day-night cycle, crops growing in precise rows. Mir joined her, carrying 2 cups of tea. "The council approved your proposal," he said. "They're naming the agricultural district after your grandfather." Akim nodded, thinking of the haunted soldier in the recording. He'd called himself a coward, but she understood now. He'd been waiting for someone who could turn sacrifice into hope, who could transform pain into purpose. She raised her cup toward the stars. "To second chances, grandfather, and to being brave enough to use them." Below them, the first harvest was beginning. The ghost farm was alive again, feeding thousands. And a young orphaned girl had discovered that the greatest inheritance wasn't measured in credits, but in the courage to honor those who came before by building something better for those who came after. In the end, humanity's strength had never been in weapons or wealth. It was in the stubborn refusal to let sacrifice be meaningless, in the determination to turn even the darkest legacies into light.